3.1, superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. So my first item is we have guests tonight. I'm very pleased to introduce the board and the community for the first time to Dr. James Clark, who is our selectee to be the next principal of Central Middle School. So the board and administration have already read Dr. Clark's bio, so I'll spare you the length of it, but I will say that he's been in education for over 20 years, the last 12 of which were spent in school administration, and we were delighted with how much of our desired principal profile that we developed ahead of the search matched with Dr. Clark's disposition and experience and leadership style. And I think he's going to be an outstanding addition to the administrative council team as well. So I look forward to presenting the board with a recommendation for his hire at the regular April meeting. And between now and then, I'll be introducing him to the central community. So I wanted to give the board a chance to meet James tonight. James a chance to meet the board and a couple of administrators he hasn't yet. So I'd just like to welcome James. James, you want to come up and shake some hands?
Sure.
Sure.
Nice to see you again. Good to see you again.
Welcome. Looking forward to getting to know you.
I just wanted to say before I sat down, I'm really excited. Everyone I've met with District 146 has been amazing. Looking forward to meeting the central students and staff. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to really move the school forward in many different ways, and I hopefully you guys feel the same way. So look forward to working with you guys throughout the course of the next few years. On my bio, I know you guys have it. My contact information's there, so if you guys have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out. So thank you.
Next, Wendy has a good half dozen updates, the first of which is about our phonics resource locality.
All right, thank you, Dr. Staywick. As we said, a handful of topics to share out today. As you know, the first topic is going to be on phonics resource. And as you may have read in last week's update, as per our teacher's request, we've done some initial review of some sample supplemental resources for our ELA curriculum. You can find these resources in the back of the room if you'd like to go through and peruse a little bit. Got some fun things back there with puppets and all kinds of fun learning activities. Again, we are just in the initial stages of reviewing some resources, and so as we go along, we'll keep the board updated on our phonics review. Our second topic is Math Challenge. Each year, you know, District 146 hosts a Math Challenge for students in grades 1 through 8. And this year, our Math Challenge was held on February 23rd. Just a little bit about qualifying for our Math Challenge. Students take a preliminary test at their home schools, and then each of our elementary schools send 4 participants, 4 winners, and an alternate to the Math Challenge from grades 1st through 5th. As far as our middle school, we send 16 participants and 2 alternates to the Math Challenge. Just a little bit about the Math Challenge. It does consist of 3 events. 2 of them are individual. One that focus on our mental math and our computation. And our third event focuses on team event, which is really awesome because our kids get to come together from different schools and work with kids to solve problems, and they really enjoy that piece of it. So, the top 2 students in our every grade level will go on to represent District 146 at our South Cook Regional Math Bowl that's going to be held on April 29th. And then, of course, following our Math Challenge, we did our Math Challenge Awards Night on February 24th. This is where we recognized our Math Challenge participants. We presented awards for our 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade finishers and the individual events. And then additionally, we announced our team winners and recognized them as well. Also, during our awards night, we had an opportunity where we recognized our Virginia Couple Award recipients. This year, we honored 3 students, Megan Duncan, Rihanna Carrar, and Gavin Cunningham. And just a little bit about the math award, the couple award. It's named after a former teacher who started the math challenge here in District 146 and retired in 2010. And this year we felt very honored because her son Lewis came and presented the couple award to our participants. So we were very blessed with that, and we just want to say congratulations to all our couple recipients. A little bit about our spelling bee. We had a spelling bee finalist, Natalie Oregon, who has placed third in the South Cook ISA spelling bee. And Natalie's going to move forward onto the regional ISC Scripps spelling bee on March 29th, and we wish her luck as well. And finally, kindergarten screening is here. Our curriculum department and our kindergarten teams have been working together to prepare for screening incoming kindergartners, which will happen on April 21st. We currently have 90 students signed up to be screened that day. It's going to be a busy day. And the districts, we prepared some welcome bags to help students start connecting to their principals and their schools. These results for the screening will then be used to determine if we want to identify students who might need a little more help before coming to kindergarten. So we invite them to our Jump Start program in the summer, as well as share that information with our teachers, our kindergarten teachers, to help them plan in advance for the incoming kindergartners. And that concludes all the wonderful topics to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Brady. We have some celebrations. Congratulations to Jessica Gonzalez and family on the birth of their daughter, Gia Raquel. Jessica is a teacher at Central. Everyone's doing well. And congratulations to Samantha Nichols and her family on the arrival of their twin girls, Amelia and Sophia, are both healthy. We're told everyone's doing well. Samantha's a great teacher here. We have some condolences. Shannon Persh's grandfather, Aaron Corcoran's father, Aaron, former Secretary of Kirk. Shannon is the administrative assistant of the curriculum instruction department here at the Ad Center. We lost Shannon's grandfather, Aaron Corcoran's father, on March 1st. Aaron retired last year, and Shannon's still serving here at the Ad Center. Karen Kitley was a speech pathologist with the district for many years. We've heard that learned that sadly Karen passed away recently. So we extend our deepest sympathy to each of these families and members of the 146 family that form those losses as well. And that's all I have for this.
Thank you. 4.1, 5-year financial forecast. Board, we're going to head out in the downstairs.
Here.
All right, this is the 5-year financial forecast. I apologize if anyone told you there'd be no math at tonight's board meeting, but that's just how it goes.
It's a math night.
So in my world, budgeting, of course, is a year-round process, so this is where we are, kind of in between preparation of the new budget, which happens in the fall. So at this time of the year, we look kind of longer term just to see where things are headed. And a forecast is only as good as the assumptions that you use to develop it. So I'm going to start with what assumptions we used, and then we'll get into the numbers at the end. First, just an overview, and board members, I'm sure, are familiar with this, but you can see that the biggest majority of our revenues comes from property taxes. That number used to be about 80% in previous years. It's ticking down a little bit because state revenue is going to start to tick up as we have gotten the property tax relief grant. So the state's effort to increase their funding is working a little bit by little bit. This is 5 years of history of the Consumer Price Index plus the current year plus 5 years going forward. So you can see in the history, it's averaging about 2% for the past 5 years. The current year that we're getting money for this year is 1.4. And then you can see the big jump next year, 5%. That's actually for the year that just ended December 2021, but that money is delayed when it comes in. We won't receive it for 2 more years. And then going forward, those future numbers have always been at 2% estimated going forward to match what the history is, but we bumped it up to 2.5. It could even be higher than that if inflation is here to stay, but just for the sake of being a little bit conservative, we use the 5% that we know about and then up to 2.5% in future years. Another aspect of property taxes is the new property. That's what allows us to access additional funding. And you can see that before the housing crisis in the way past, we averaged $4 to $5 million of new property per year. Then when the housing crisis hit and property values plummeted, then it was more like in the 100 to 500,000 range. Then we had the TIF that expired that we all remember, which allowed us to start our kindergarten full-day program. So then going forward, we're using the historical average of 700,000 or so for future years. On the state side, the state implemented evidence-based funding back in FY18, and we started in Tier 4, which is the lowest level, and then we moved up to Tier 3, then up to Tier 2. It was frozen during one of the COVID years, and now we're back to Tier 3 for the current year. And you can see the new revenue that it generates is not large on a $40+ million budget, but 58,000 new dollars is better than 0 new dollars, so we'll take what we can get. And then also that next to last line there, it's going to go up by $1 million starting this year and in all future years as part of the property tax relief grant. So that one is a big deal. Other future state revenue we held flat besides the evidence-based funding. We've talked about interest revenue, how as recently as 2 years ago, we received $1 million in revenue from our investments. Then it went down to $500,000 as interest rates dropped. Now it's $100,000. We are starting to see those interest rates tick up a little bit, but gas prices are going up faster than bond interest rates are, so it's slow and it will take a while to get through. So I think we have $100,000 in the current year's budget. It might be $150,000 in the future years, but it's still kept pretty low, not knowing what the future holds. And then also we are abating $1.7 million in property taxes as part of this relief grant requirement. So for 2 years, we have to abate $1.7 million, but the trade-off is we get $1 million in new state funding forever. So all of these things go into the mix when running numbers for producing a forecast. On the expense side, you could see that 70% of our expenses are salaries and benefits. Everything else is single digits, and that's pretty straightforward. So the assumptions we used on the expense side, salaries per negotiated agreements, generally we're locked in with all of our unions at 3 or 3.25%. We're projecting keeping staffing flat. That is the goal anyway. We have health insurance increasing by 5%. That one really varies from year to year. Some years it's 2%, some years it's 10%, so 5 is a good average. And then pretty much in all the other categories we're looking at, we're using 2% as the number. I'm hopeful that we can keep it at 2% with inflation going up as much as it is. That might be a challenge. You could see on the transportation, I use 10% for next year and then the same 2% in future years. That I'm sure is going to be optimistic. We have on the agenda tonight 5% for special ed, but our regular ed provider is asking for a very large increase that we're still negotiating. And then we have capital projects in there. We have $1.5 million in the current year, which is just finishing off. It was really last summer, but it was in this current fiscal year, finishing the renovations, and then $1 million for next year for the HVAC at CMS and also the new gym flooring. So all of these things go into making a projection, and then that produces numbers that look like this, and I apologize that it's so small. I'm not going to focus on this page. I just want you to know that it's there in board docs if you want to look at individual numbers. I have two sets of numbers. This first one is called operating funds, and then there's charts to go along with it, and then there's one for all funds. That's the one I'm going to focus on tonight. And we talked about this a little bit at the committee meeting last year. And again, I realize you can't see the small numbers from where you are, but the local, sorry about that. The local numbers really fluctuate from year to year because property taxes are a year delayed when they come in, which is going to lead to a $4 million loss next year. But then the following year, it's only going to be 1 million. And then the year after that, it's positive. And it's all 100% due to timing. We have the 5% CPI coming in, but we're also abating money, but then the abatement goes away. So a lot of factors. So this is the chart that I wanted to focus on for a couple minutes. But again, this one has 5 years. The first 5 years are history, then it's the budget in the middle, and then it's 5 years projected going forward. The red line is our fund balance. That's how much money we have in the bank. And so currently we're at 38.5 million. The blue line underneath it is the 50% of our expenditure level. So we have a board policy that we want our fund balance, the red line, to always be above 50% of our fund balance, which is the blue line. Now, in the current year, we're actually at more like 80%, 75 to 80%. And as you can see, as we go out, the red line comes down and the blue line comes up, so they get closer and closer, and it's actually 64% there at the end. But even 5 years from now, and even with the big deficit that we're going to have next year, we're still in good financial shape. And that's the main message that I want to get across. We don't like seeing deficits really in any year, but we've had a couple in a row just because of COVID and extra things that we have incurred. But the property tax relief grant is going to help tremendously. We're keeping staffing flat. And the district is in good financial shape, all things considered. So that's all I have. If anyone has any questions, or if you need more information, all of the individual numbers are in board docs.
Now, these numbers, moving forward, those are based on your assumptions in the previous slides,
Yes,
correct?
yes. So we update that every year. Most 5-year plans make it look like it's going to be a disaster in 5 years because revenues are going up 1 or 2%, expenses are going up 3 or 4%, but we always make adjustments so that we never get to that point 5 years from now. This is more of an exercise to determine, are we in big trouble and we need to make immediate changes, or are we doing okay?
It's not meant to be precise, just
Right,
ballpark,
right.
moving forward. Do we
Exactly.
anticipate any other of these TIFs coming off? Like we get in the-
No,
Now, we
there-
have one coming off in 24, 25.
the existing TIFs either have a long way until they expire, or there's no, or very little extra money in them. The one that expired that had that big spike, that was one of the most successful ones ever in the state of Illinois. Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on, 5.1, 1, citizens may address the board at this time. Are there any citizens? All right, moving on to 5.2, citizens may address the board at this time. Are there any citizens? 5.3, citizens may address the board at this time. Are there any citizens? really small, Post-it note. Which for me is really good. Wendy had mentioned a couple things that we've been involved in the math challenge and spelling bee and that kind of thing. We're also very big right now on science fairs and reading nights. A lot of curriculum-based events where we're kind of drawing families in. So we've got a lot of that going on, as well as choir concerts and things like that going on. So it's a really busy time of year. We start IAR testing pretty much right after we get back from break, so we're kind of gearing up for that, doing a lot of preparation for getting the kids ready for the next round of testing. The MAP testing will be a little later. But everyone's looking forward to spring break. I had a couple students today saying, "Are we really off half a day Friday?" And I said, "Yeah, we are." And they're like, "That's good." And then someone said, "Yeah, we're off the whole week after that." And they're like, "Really?" It was like they were news to them. So it was nice to bring some joy to them because they were unaware they had a whole another week after just the half day on Friday. So good news for everyone all around. And that's all I have. I'm sorry, Karen.
It's okay. I was just gonna say that ESP Union is just looking forward to spring break.
Thank you. Okay, now may I have a motion for consent agenda?
Moving that, move to approve 7.1 approval of minutes, 7.2 approval of closed session minutes, 7.3 approval of the destruction of closed session tapes, 7.4 approval of financial items, and 7.5 approval of personnel matters.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Everybody call the roll?
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata. Dunlap.
Yes.
Woody, yes. Hensley.
Yes. 7.6, approval of administrator contracts for 2022-2023.
Yes, it's my pleasure to present these contracts for your consideration tonight for the new administrator in the district for our next fiscal year.
Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the administrator contracts for the 2022-2023 year as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Secretary call the roll?
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Dunlap.
Yes.
Woody, yes. Hensley.
Yes. 7.7, approval of transportation contract with Sunrise School Bus Company for special ed transportation.
Yes, this was info last month, but Sunrise has come to us with a proposal for a 5% increase for next year, which I would like to jump all over right now while we can. We are generally happy with their service. The original proposal was 7%, negotiated to 6%, but they told us that we have higher liability insurance requirements than all of the surrounding districts, which I checked and is correct. So they agreed to drop it to 5% if we would lower our liability requirements to kind of what is the standard. So that's part of the agreement as well.
Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the contract for special education student transportation with Sunrise Bus Company for the 2022-23 school year as presented.
Any discussion? Secretary call the roll?
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Dunlap.
Yes.
Woody, yes. Hensley.
Yes. 7.8, approval of bid for gym floor work at Farragut Cruz.
It's my pleasure to, in Matt's place, to present these final renderings for the bid specs for those projects at Fairview Cruz. If you look very closely at them, and you look very closely at the ones that were presented in community as a whole, you may be able to find a difference or two. We got a little bit more input from the local PE teachers who had a couple preferences. No change in the scope of the project, but the renderings are really impressive. We look forward to those improvements. And Jim, I can tell you more about the nature of the funding for those projects.
Yes, the state did a school maintenance grant where they match up to $50,000 of our spending with a $50,000 state grant. So we have $100,000 that we would have to spend on the project. And the bid came in at $93,400, so that's good enough to utilize almost the full amount of this state grant, and then $50,000 of our own.
We're happy to hear that the lowest bidder was indeed a responsible one. Sometimes you can't go with that best bidder, that lowest bidder, but our architect had experience with that company, called references, and it's a good vendor, and at a good price, so we're happy to present this for the board to accept the bid results and award the project.
Great, do I have a motion? I move that the Board of Education approve the bid from DLA Architects with a bid in the amount of $93,400 for gym floor replacement work at Pierce Education Center and Cruz Education Center.
Second.
Discussion?
Excuse me, can you run it for a second?
Yeah.
Should this motion be?
Don't worry about that. It should say
I
DLA.
think we should name the individual vendor, no?
Yes. Yes, the bid is being awarded to Superior Floor Covering. That's the name of the company that won the bid.
So pursuant to the recommendation of DLA Architects, the motion should be accept the bid of, what's the name of the?
Superior Floor Covering, Inc.
Superior Floor Covering, so if you don't mind, can you repeat
Got
that?
it. I move that the Board of Education approve the bid from Superior Floor Covering with a bid in the amount of $93,400 for gym floor replacement work at Pierce Education Center and Cruz Education Center.
Second.
Discussion? Secretary, roll call.
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Belmont.
Yes.
Lily, yes. Senza.
Yes. 7F9, resolution authorizing the abatement of portion of taxes heretofore levied by Community Consolidated School District 146, Cook County, Illinois, in connection with receipt of a property tax relief grant.
As we've been discussing, we finally qualified this year, and in order to receive approximately $1 million in additional state funding in perpetuity, we have to abate $1.7 million for each of the next 2 years. So this is the first year of that tax abatement, which will go toward lowering property taxes for local taxpayers. A very good thing.
Okay, we have a motion.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing the abatement of a portion of the taxes heretofore levied by Community Consolidated School District Number 146, Cook County, Illinois, in connection with the receipt of a property tax relief grant.
Second.
Discussion. Secretary call the roll.
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Belmont.
Yes.
Lily, yes. Senza.
Yes. 7F10, resolution for non-renewal / dismissal of probationary teachers.
Yes, so there are 4 teachers that are being recommended for non-renewal dismissal this year, which requires that the board pass a resolution of dismissal non-renewal. So we present that to you tonight.
Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution for dismissal of first-year probationary teachers as
Is there a second? Discussion. Secretary call the roll.
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Belmont.
Yes.
Lily, yes. Senza.
Yes. 8.1, classified non-union ESP salaries.
Yes, we celebrate all of our employees district-wide, union or non. It's that time of year for us to make recommendations for salaries of those employees whose salaries aren't already predetermined by a collective bargaining agreement. In this case, we're talking about classified employees or ESP employees that are not members of the ESP union. So next month, I'll be recommending that you resolve to increase those individuals' salaries for the next fiscal year in an amount equal to their union brethren, which in this case is 3.25%.
Questions? Okay, moving on, 9.1, communications correspondence.
Dr. Stavick, District 146 Administration Staff and Board of Education. Thank you so much for the beautiful floral arrangements sent to memory of my mom. My dad and I were comforted by your kindness and sympathy during this difficult time. With appreciation, Missy Terry. Dear Dr. Stavick and the Board of Education, I want to thank you so much for the beautiful floral arrangements and it's a tribute to my dad. It was a sudden loss, but the family of 146 has been such a comfort and blessing to me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your kindness. Sincerely, Cheryl Boston.
I believe that's all we have. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
For a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.